Hey everybody, this is Cynthia Lewis. Hope everybody is doing well today. Want to talk to you guys about the 5 reasons Christian women feel stuck in their jobs. So, without further ado, guys, let's get into the content. So, guys, the truth of the matter is that Christian women feel stuck in their jobs, and even though they may not verbalize it, they may not say it out loud, they feel like that. Don't get me wrong. They love God, right? You know, they don't mind doing the work. They're responsible people. But deep down, they know in their heart that there is something that is off, right? They wake up every morning thinking that I know that I'm called for more, you know, more impact, more freedom, more purpose. And you know what? They are actually called for more, right? Yet they stay in that job. Why do they stay in that job? They don't really know why they staying, but they're staying, right? And they know um that they feel trapped, right? So let's get into the 5 reasons why Christian women, feel stuck in their job. So number one, they have confused stability with calling. You know, many Christian women were taught, you know, to take the safest, route, the safest place. What does that look like? That looks like going to college, right? Getting your education, right? Getting a good job and staying at that job until you retire, right? Until God come along and shake things up. So, and don't get me wrong, guys, there's nothing wrong with working and things like that, but you got to remember the paycheck is not just, you know, it's your paycheck is a paycheck, true enough, but it's bigger. Your paycheck is not your calling, basically. You're there to do a job and you do it well, but your paycheck is not your calling. The calling that inside of you is what God placed in you. So you got to remember, just because your job provides stability, it does not mean that God is wanting you to stay there forever, right? Sometimes, that job was just for a season. Like I said a minute ago, God will come through and shake things up, right? And so you have to remember that sometimes that you're only in these places and spaces just for seasons. So um don't get so um committed to the place to where you can't let it go. Okay? So let's get into number 2. Number 2. Um some Christian women have become conditioned to shrink. And why is that? You know, After years and sometimes even decades of working in places and spaces where you're overlooked, you're ignored, you're not valued for what you bring to the organization. You know, your potential starts to minimize, right? And then what eventually happens is you start to play small. Excuse me. You start to play small and you start to believe that your voice does not matter when it actually does, right? But the truth is, God did not design you to just shrink, right? He he designed you to step into that place and to be who he called you to be. And to be that person, you cannot stay comfortable, right? Because that's what happens when you're at a job and you've been there like years and maybe even decades. You can become comfortable. You like, oh well, you pretty much know how things are, and you can become comfortable in that. But um, don't get comfortable, guys. And if you've been comfortable, let's get uncomfortable, right? Come from being comfortable and let's begin to move. All right, so let's go on to number three. Number three is fear of uncertainty, right? So the truth of the matter, guys, is, whenever you step into something new, it can feel scary. What is that newness? It could be you building income outside of your job. It could be you launching that business, right? It can be you just creating something of your own that you created. You envisioned it in your mind, you executed it, and then you created it into what you envisioned in your mind, right? And all of that, what I just said, it requires faith, right? And faith means moving before, everything is figured out, right? That's why in Hebrews 11:1 tells us faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Because this is what the Lord would do. This is what God would do. You know, He'll give you a step and you got to take that step. But He's not going to show you the full staircase, right? He going to tell you what you need to do. Go do that. And you want to know that step and then everything else you got to do. But God is not going to do that. He going to go do that. And then once you do that, He's going to tell you the next thing to do. And that's just what He does. But it is what it is. So just know, guys, that whenever you are building something, it is going to require you to tap into your faith, and you're not going to know every step that you were supposed to take at that exact moment, right? After you do that one thing God leads you to do, then He's going to lead you to the next thing you need to do. That's just what He does. All right. So guys, let's go on to number four. Number four. Christian women tie their identity to their job title. So a lot of times if someone asks you, "Oh, what do?" You tell people what your job is. You tell them what your title is. Right? But guys, you have to remember that your job title is just what you do. It does not define who you are, right? And you got to remember, you are called, you are gifted, and you are assigned to, impact others, right? All right, so let's go on to number five. Number five. And this is our final one. Number five. Christian women are waiting for permission. Oh my goodness. Yes. Christian women are waiting for permission. This is one of the biggest reasons why women stay stuck, right? This is one of the reasons why Christian women stay stuck, right? They're waiting for someone to validate them, right? You're waiting for a supervisor to recognize, the value that you add to the organization. Recognize that you do a great job, right? Because you do. You're waiting for, your family's approval, right? You're waiting for the perfect moment, right? You know, Guys, if God gave you the vision, that's all the permission that you need. And I want to let you know that, you know, stop waiting for the perfect time, because, guys, if you wait for the perfect time, that time is never going to happen. It's always going to be something that is going to come up. It's always going to be something that tries to stop you. There's always going to be a challenge that pop up and you said, okay, I'm going to do it this month. Let's just say the month of March, right? So you say, I'm going to do it this month. Something pops up to March, then you make it slide to April. No, you cannot let it go into April. You got to you got to take action, you know, right there. And you cannot wait for the perfect time, because, guys, if you wait or try to wait for the perfect time, I guarantee you it's not going to happen. It's always going to be something that is going to come up. So if that's the case, you might as well just roll with roll and do what you want to do and what you need to do right here and right now. All right. And then we have Ecclesiastes chapter 11, Verses 4 to remind us that says, whoever watches the wind will not plant, whoever looks at the clouds would not reap, right? So, in other words, again, if you wait for the perfect condition to exist before you start to do whatever it is that God has instructed you, called you to do, you're not going to start. So I'm here today to let you know that you got to start, right? You got to start. So I want to let you know, and I just want to put something on your mind. Have you thought about, the reason that you might feel stuck or restless? Maybe in your heart, that God is calling you to something bigger, right? He's calling you to build something bigger than just going to that 9 to 5, right? Nothing wrong with it doing it right now, but what if God is calling you eventually to leave that place, right? Think about it. You know, what if he's leading you to something that's going to allow you to create impact and income, right? What if he's leading you to freedom, right? Not just for yourself, but maybe you're called to serve other women. Maybe you call whoever it is that you're called to serve. Maybe he's not only leading you to freedom, but maybe he's also leading you along with those ladies, to freedom. So everything is connected together. So you got to remember that your job may have been the starting point, but it was not the destination, right? And the moment you start building income and purpose outside of that job, you're going to see the shift. Oh my God, you're going to see the shift, right? Freedom doesn't happen by accident. I'm going to say that again. Freedom doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you finally decide to move, right? You got to take action. You got to move. You have to decide. You have to decide, do I want to obey God, or do I want to be disobedient? I heard somebody here the last week or so say, if you don't obey God, you're going to pay a disobedient tax. Who wants to do that? I know I don't, and I'm sure you don't either. So just obey God. Whatever it is that God has instructed you to do, and you've been pondering on it, and you've been procrastinating about it, you've been thinking about it, but in your heart you should be taking action, but you haven't. You need to get started. And so just want to let you know, guys, that I have a product called Escaping the Comfort Trap of a Steady Paycheck, which is going to help you to start building income outside of your 9 to 5. So if you're interested in getting it, you can get it from the link from the description below. All right, guys, this is Cynthia Lewis. Until next time, I will talk to you soon. Bye.